Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Jonah and the Pod. Today we have a very special guest. We have someone, I will say this again, she is very easy to talk to. She's a real one because this might be our second recording.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. And she's VeggieTales #1 fan.
I was going to say vegetarian. I was like, absolutely not.
Everyone, please welcome Ashley.
Cedra.
Oh, I don't know if you want your last name.
I don't know. I was like, I thought you forgot it.
No, oh, so no, your last name.
Hi. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
What an honor.
First time.
Yeah.
So if you guys can't tell, we have recorded an episode. Things didn't work out. But we are, like Ashley is everyone. It's 11 p.m. currently. And
oh my. Yeah.
yeah, look. But we are going again. And honestly, respect to Ashley because...
I respect me also. It's fine.
It's good.
Let's do this.
All right. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Just what do you do, who you are, hobbies, work, uni, anything you want.
Sure. Well, I'll introduce myself as I'm the daughter of the Most High God. No, I'm kidding. Like, I mean, I am. Not kidding. But like, I'm so serious. Anyway, yes. Hi, my name is Ashley. I am 23 years of age. I'm currently studying. I'm studying to be a dietitian at the moment, and God willing, I will graduate. I also just work casually, like as reception admin for a speech pathologist. What else? I am the youngest of 3 children. I have 2 older brothers. My hobbies. I actually enjoy, apparently, this is news to people. I enjoy like art, a lot of artsy things. I like being creative, so I enjoy like painting and drawing, things like that. Oh, anything to do with my hands, to be honest, like just building, crafting. Like,
when was the last time you did?
Honestly, not too long ago.
Oh yeah?
Made bookmarks.
You sing as well? Which I often hear.
Yes. I do enjoy singing as well. Not when people ask me to though, so
Should I give us a rendition?
No.
What? Yeah, anything else?
I don't think so.
It's going to be a speed run of a podcast because we just went over it. Sorry.
No. No, that's like everything creative I think is fun. I'm a Disney fanatic.
It's true. You did.
I love Disney. Didn't mention that the first time. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's it.
What's your favorite Disney movie?
Oh,
I know this, and you know this.
it's between 2.
2? I only know 1.
Tangled.
Yeah, that's
Tangled is like probably my top, but it just feels like so mean to like the other movies. They've done so well. But then probably close second is probably Princess and the Frog.
Sorry, that was literally. I'm so smart.
Nice.
That's literally like what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say that or Beauty and the Beast for some reason.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But Princess and the Frog, I was like.
Princess and the Frog. But Tangled is up there. Just storyline, soundtrack, everything. So good.
You want to sing your favorite song for us?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much
I had a dream.
I don't know that song. Would have joined in. So let's go through your testimony just real quick.
Sure.
She doesn't want to share the whole thing, but we'll talk about whatever she wants to talk about. And then we will go through topics and whatever else she would like.
Yeah, sounds good. So, yeah, I grew up in a Christian household, which, you know, is a blessing. Obviously, like I feel like a lot of people often undermine it, but yeah, such a blessing. Went to Sunday school, did all the things, you know. I was very much like, I would say like what you consider a practicing Christian for that age, like quite young. Like I loved going to church, but I feel like it was more because I liked doing the right thing and I was very much a goody two shoes. So I enjoyed doing what was right. And yeah, I was just like always at church, always went to like Sunday school, to like the Friday nights, whatever like we were involved in. And then like there's not really a time that I can, I guess,
pinpoint
things. There's not really a time that I can pinpoint to when I like was saved or when I gave my life to Christ, because I just always felt like I was constantly giving my life to Christ. Like I remember going to like definitely a few conferences when I was about like 12, and at one of these conferences, I'm sure is when I would have given my life over. Like at the end when they say, you know, like if you haven't given your life over, like let's go through the prayer today. And I just went through that prayer. And then I also recall like any other conferences from then on out, and even like sermons when we were like called to like give our lives to God. If we hadn't, I would just participate in all of them. And I think it was just like, I was never quite sure when I was saved, or like, I just always, like it was a contingency plan. I was just like, oh, just in case like the last one wasn't real, I'll do it again. Because like, I mean, I was giving my heart as much as I could or like knew how to at the time. So at each stage I was like, no, that last me wasn't a Christian. Like I'm a little bit better now. Like I'm going to give my heart again, because like, I don't know if the last one was real, and just like all of that stuff was like a lot of like doubt and things like that. So yeah, I was like constantly just giving my life to God, probably from like the age of like 11 to 14.
When you look back, do you think do you think you gave your life to Christ before?
I think I did. Like I genuinely wanted to do it, but I didn't understand the steps required afterwards. No one tells you like what you're supposed to do next, or like how to follow through with the next thing. And especially at a conference, like, you know, everyone is just like called to the altar, and then I don't know, everyone like probably has like a really emotional crying sesh and then goes home. And like, unless your youth leaders, like, no, I don't know. It's like, I don't even want to put blame on the youth leaders, but like, as in, unless you're taught what to do next, or like how to make the next steps right, which apart from like people would just say like, oh, you know, pray and read your Bible. And so like, I actually didn't know what steps to take.
Yeah.
So I would just like keep being like, yeah, I'm saved. Or like, yeah, I give my life to God, but then I wouldn't know what steps to take. So then I would feel guilty. And then the next event where I could like give my heart to God, I would. And so, yeah, at the time with what I knew, I definitely did, I think. But yeah, because I didn't know that much, I didn't, I guess, practice as well as I could have, or like completely comprehend, I guess, maybe like the weight of my sin or the weight of salvation, all of that. And which is why like at every stage I was like a little bit more like knowledgeable, and thought my past self like wasn't a real Christian. And so I wanted to be like saved again.
It shows like, just by you saying that, shows a little bit of a weakness, not in you, in like the way that we do things, sort of. I'm not saying it's terrible, but a lot of like, even with Word of Life, sometimes the issues that I have of like altar calls and stuff like that is like, what's next, and like what's after. Firstly, like it's not up to us to know if it's genuine or not. The people, maybe it's out of emotion. That's why I asked you, do you reckon like prior you actually thought, or is it like emotions? If it's real, then it's like an issue on whoever it was at a church or whatever it was. The altar call, because there's no follow-up. And the Great Commission, it's like you're doing the first step. The Great Commission is make disciples, baptize them, and then disciple them. Yeah. And you're just getting to the first stage, not doing the rest. It's a bit of a fault, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it was definitely difficult, but like, yeah, I don't want to fault the youth leaders that I had at the time. I think it was just like, I don't know, maybe it was just like my capacity to understand as well at the time. Like I didn't realize what to do or even who to go to. Like partly my fault. Like I should have like reached out to my youth leaders and like asked them because I know they would have been there for me. So yeah, again, not a fault to the youth leaders at all. But yeah, I didn't even know what to do, like how to move on. So yeah, that was like my life. So somewhere between 11 to 14, I gave my life to God. And like, yeah, I feel like there's definitely been like things along the way that have like brought me closer to God, or like have been like pinnacle moments in like realizing how far away from my faith I am, and has like brought me closer to God. But yeah, like there wasn't like a real like moment in time that I remember.
Yeah. So you went to these things, these like just events.
Yeah,
they had an altar call,
Mm-hmm.
conferences. So they're all conferences. Oh, most of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were around in youth, you went to these conferences. Wow, sorry. And then you gave your life to Christ many times. Like, so sometime in there you sort of gave your life to Christ. When did it become serious for you? Like, when did you start seeing a change in your life? If you remember.
Yeah. No, there was definitely like a few pinnacle moments, I think, in my life. Oh my gosh, it's so hard to remember the second time around now. But yeah, like there were definitely a few pinnacle moments. I think one, I'm definitely not going to remember these in order now, but I think one, when I started having to like drive myself to church. So I had started serving at church by this point. And then obviously got my license, and some days, like obviously my parents wouldn't go to church and I would still be serving. So I would need to go to church, or even the opposite. Like I'm not serving. So I would wonder, like, I now have my license. Do I drive myself to church? And so like, it was things like this, such like a, I guess, minuscule thing, but, it was just a weird thing to have to like now be in charge of myself, now be responsible for my own actions, or like what I was going to do, and now think like, why am I going to church? And having to think like, was I going because my parents were going and I was just following them? Was I going because my friends were there? Do I stop going now if my like parents aren't going one week? Or like, how do I approach this situation? I mean, in the end, I ended up deciding, because I was already serving, that like my priorities was to service. And obviously it then brought about questions about my service and why I was serving, and like if I was there for the right reasons, and you know, and if I was truly serving for God, then why wouldn't I go to church on my own, even if other people don't join me? Like even if other people aren't encouraging me, I should be an encouragement to others when I go to church. So making sure that I understand that serving is a service and I need to go and serve others. So if I don't do that, like, yeah, what was the point of it all? So yeah, that was definitely like a moment in time where I had to like really think about where I stood with my faith and like how to move forward.
That was like you were 17?
Yeah, 17 because I would have just gotten my P's. So yeah, that was definitely a big motivator. Another thing was like when I moved schools. So when I moved schools in year 8, so I went from I don't know, like a Christian school. I think it was a Protestant Christian, like I don't know. Just I moved from a Christian school to a Coptic Orthodox school in year 8, and I just remember like everyone was like, you know, I was like, what, 13? So like I didn't really know much about other denominations, or I guess other way that people practice their faith. And so I remember people giving me like a rundown of like what to expect going into this new school, and I guess how to approach situations or things that I might find weird that like aren't actually weird, and just kind of prepping me for it in general. Which was, I guess, needed because, yeah, when I like got to school, it was a little bit of a culture shock just because like I just wasn't sure what was going on. And in saying that, like I am thankful that it wasn't a daunting or a terrible or like frightening experience. Like I was never overwhelmed by it. I was more just like curious. And so like the more I would see or the more I would learn about like the differences in faith, the more questions I would have. And then these questions brought about questions upon my own understanding, my own denomination. What denomination am I? Like I'd never even questioned what denomination my church was because like to me church was just church. So I never even like considered. I was like, oh, like yeah, obviously when I heard Coptic Orthodox, I was like, oh, what am I then? And so then that's, you know, when I learned like I've been going to a Presbyterian church and, you know, there are different denominations and all of this stuff. And yeah, it was really eye-opening. I remember like the first day, I think, that I went to school, everyone would ask me, oh, what's your name? And then they would ask me, and are you Coptic? And I would have to be like, oh, no. And I just felt that like tension as soon as I said no, that like, oh, there was a distinction.
Yeah.
And like
it's probably the first, obviously I don't know, but first non-Coptic at the school.
It wasn't the first. This like school's quite popular for its academics, so a lot of people went there for that as well. But like even people of like not even Christian faith went.
Oh, went there, right? Okay.
But I think they just weren't used to the idea that I was Egyptian.
Okay.
But I wasn't. Yeah. I wasn't Orthodox. And I remember my defense used to be so quickly because I was just like confused as to why people were so like, because people would almost get like disinterested in me after I said, no, I'm not Coptic. And so they'd be like, what do you mean? Like you're Egyptian, you're not Coptic? Like, how's that possible? I'd be like, I don't know. And yeah, there was almost a disinterest. So like my defense mechanism would always be like, well, technically I'm Coptic. I'm just not Orthodox because Coptic, if you guys don't know, Coptic just means like Egyptian. It's the original language that Egyptians spoke before the Arab invasion, and then they started speaking Arabic because of that. So like Coptic is just the original language. So I used to always be like, well, technically, legally by law, I'd be like, yeah, I am in fact Coptic. I'm just not Orthodox. And so I guess that was just like my way of fitting in. But like soon that just ended up turning into like, yeah, curiosity about my faith and like, why do we believe what we believe? How did we get there? Where does it say that in the Bible? What's going on here? Why is there a split? When did this split happen? What's going on? Like so many questions. And like these questions were also debates that I would have with my friends about like, oh, like what do you do for this? And what do you do for like, for example, like what do you do for communion? What do you do for baptism? What do you do for all these things? And like, we're both just as curious as each other. Each side just like kind of questioning. And on my end, at least, it was never like judgmental. It was never like I guess like weirded out.
It was curiosity.
Yeah, it was just like curiosity. It was just genuine interest because like for me, this was like the first time I had even understood that there was theology to begin with. Like this was just not an idea that was ever spurred in my head. So yeah, like that brought about a lot of questions. It brought about a lot of debates, and these debates, like it would excite me to have these debates. Like I would get so excited to talk about something, and I would get even more excited to find out something that I didn't know about my like faith. Like if my friend would ask me a question and I didn't know the answer, I would be like, oh my gosh, like you're right. I don't know that. Give me a week. I'll come back to you. We'll do this again. Like I'm not sure, but I'm so excited to find out. Like
straight to Mike Wingo.
No, shout out to Money. He's the one that introduced Money.
Oh, actually, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, so I only found him recently. But no, so like I would just go back to like church and like ask my youth leaders, ask the pastor, ask whoever was around me and be like, so why do we believe this? Like what's the go here? Like what's happening? And so then I would learn that and then go back and then have another argument and then find out more and then like learn from that and come back. And like even, I mean, I found even so much beauty in the Orthodox faith. Like there's so much that they do that I just think, oh wow, that's so wholesome. Like it's just so like, I don't know, like sometimes some of the things that they see or the way that they see the religion is like so beautiful. And I'm like, wow, like what a vibe.
Cool. Honestly, it's so important, like having that aspect of like, because I don't think a lot of us, like even myself, we haven't really been outside of the bubble of Christianity. And I know that like I'm sure people watching this haven't been outside of their bubble. Maybe they've experienced the world a little bit, maybe they've like whatever, but I'm talking about within churches or within theology, within their beliefs, there's not much like I'm sure we understand, okay, Pentecostals believe in this, but I'm a Baptist, so like I believe in this. But to be honest, like I think the more time goes, the more I sort of think about like, why do I believe sort of certain things? There are things that I was grown, like I was, as I was growing, I was just like sort of taught this way.
Yeah.
As I grow, I'm just like, I actually don't know why I believe in that. Like I remember a few years ago, maybe I don't know how long ago, a few years ago, I had this like conviction. I was like, but I don't even know why I don't believe in speaking in tongues and like all the way we are supposed to speak in tongues if we do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or even prophesying. And I read the Bible and I read like where it talks about it, and I was like, okay, speaking in tongues sort of clear to me, but I still had like some questions. Prophesying was like, this is a bit like, I had a lot of questions because it wasn't as clear to me. And I think it's extremely important. And I mean, like, praise God that you had that experience of like when you were young, of like understanding where other people's point of views and actually having to think for yourself. And look, some people would just be like, oh, like who cares, whatever, it doesn't matter, my mom told me this, my dad told me this, that's why I believe in it. But it's really good that you actually like went out, you thought for yourself, you're like, okay.
No, like something I definitely I think was blessed in was that, number one, it was like in a very like low pressure situation. Like I was just having conversations with my friends, and it was just me genuinely saying that, like, for example, like if I didn't know the answer, I would just be like, oh, like I don't know, like I'm only so young, like I'm not expected to know everything in my faith. Maybe if I was older, like I might have been a bit more like prideful about it and be like, no, like I know the answer. I don't know, like I don't know how I would have received it. So I think it was such a blessing that I was like as young as I was, that it was in the context of it being like just a casual conversation with friends. And the other thing was that the fact that I went to an Orthodox school meant that I actually had a lot of conversations, or like was able to interact with their priests, like talk to an abuna and be able to ask them the questions, not just my friends, because at the same time that I was like quite juvenile in my understanding, like so were my friends, and I couldn't expect them to have all the answers to everything either. And so like being able to have like discussions with an abuna, and they would be able to tell me like properly the theology, like why they think that, and like all of these things was really helpful and like eye-opening, to be honest. To be able to just have like genuine discussions and like understand their theology, understand where they stand on everything and where they get that from and how they're interpreting the Bible. It's just, to me at least, it's so fascinating. And more than that, the fact that I was able to have these conversations made my friends question their faith as well and be like, oh yeah, why do we think that? Why do we have that? And like there's certain things in, for example, the masses that they didn't even understand, they were now asking questions about, and now they understand better.
That's good, yeah.
And so to me, like that was, a really good time in my life, because I graduated from that school. So it was like 5 years, and like in that entire 5 years, I would say like it never ended. Like it was constant conversations and like, yes, a lot of like theological debates, and sometimes it would get heated, but like all in good faith, like nothing ever. Literally. Like, but whose? No, I'm kidding. So yeah, that was definitely very, I guess, detrimental. The positive of detrimental, not detrimental.
There's a word.
There is a word.
There is.
We don't have it, but it's there. It really influenced my upbringing and like how I think about things.
I'm sure I'm gonna search
okay.
antonyms for detrimental.
Yeah, so that was good. And like they're also my friends now. Sorry, go.
I was gonna say like knowing, like getting to know some of the people that I know now. A lot of them have like history in like Orthodox or like different sort of Catholic churches. And I think like, I don't know if this is for you because I don't know how it is. You're Egyptian. You probably have Coptic cousins, all that stuff.
Yeah, I do.
But for me, it was like, you always like, maybe you weren't taught, but there was always a stigma around like other people. And there was a stigma of like, oh, they don't believe in what you believe, so they must be like not. It's going to sound a bit mental. I don't believe this, but it's like, oh, they're not saved. And you always like look at the bad things, I'd say. And you'd always see the bad things so much worse as well. Like you would, like they have a reason for why they do certain things. They still might be wrong, but it's sort of just like you're taught that way.
Yeah.
You're taught that way. They don't really understand. They want to know the Bible, but sometimes they just like they're taught what they taught. So they do have faith in Christ. So they are saved in that regard. Maybe their theology is a bit skewed, but like someone put it such a good way, he put it in such a good way recently to me. It was like, if someone, no matter who it is, whether it's Protestant, Catholic, whoever it is, if you bring the Bible to them, you bring the truth to them, and they reject it, then you probably know they're not saved. No matter if they're whatever. But if you bring it to them, no matter what their theology is, no matter how like deep into theology they are, or like whatever it is, no matter how shallow, if they sort of are willing to learn and know, then they're most likely saved. It's such a good way to like put it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think us as Protestants have a problem. Not all of us, obviously, but we were raised with a sort of thought process, especially like I have a lot of family members that are different type of Catholics, and like my parents were raised in Catholic homes, but like it wasn't very positive for them. I'm not blaming them, but it's like from what I have seen, it hasn't been positive. So my thoughts have just always been negative towards them. But as I grow, as I have friends that actually have first-hand experience and they're telling me different things, I was like, wow, okay, very interesting. So it's cool that you got to actually experience the first-hand.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely like very grateful for it. Yeah, I think it really like shaped me and like my understanding, and like even like for smaller things of like how to just have like a respectful theological debate. Like I was starting at year 8, you know, like I was practicing. I've been practicing since I was young. No, but it was, I think it was really good, and I'm very grateful for that upbringing and like just being able to be a part of that, or like even be a part of like my friends' salvation, like just so that they know more about their faith, like not necessarily to try to convert them to become Protestant, but just so that they could be a bit more serious about their faith, or just be more interested, or like even like questioning things rather than just like blindly following, because that's definitely what I was doing, at least.
Literally, the Bible constantly tells us to like question everything. Like, as in, if someone tells you something, go question it, like hold it accountable to the Bible. Like that's and that's the advice for anyone that is confused about like Catholicism or Protestants. I was going to say Presbyterians. Protestants. Literally just try search for it yourself. Don't listen to people. People have their own agendas. The Bible doesn't have an agenda. The Bible is like the ultimate truth. So that's the advice that I would have for you. The word you were looking for was beneficial.
Okay.
Just a simple word. I
Can you
searched
just
it.
like edit it in?
Go say it and I'll edit it in real quick.
Beneficial.
Yeah, there's no way I'm editing it in.
Oh, okay.
It's too much work.
That's so
But I can barely
Yeah.
edit the pod, like sync the audio together.
Anyway, it's fine.
So yeah, we were talking about some moments in your life that were like pioneer for. But before we get into that, was there a moment in life, not that sort of drew you close to God, but sort of when it started becoming like the one you saw the 180 start happening, sort of, or just was like a slow like 180 turn?
Very slow moving. Yes and no. Like I just feel like like constant battles. I feel like you just like constantly learning from them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess there was definitely more pivotal moments in my life that I feel like I started to realize like that you needed to like lean on God, or like, yeah, how God could definitely be a part of your life rather than like this separate entity, like that I'm Christian and also this thing, but rather like combining the two. And that was when I think my brother first got sick, and yeah, it was an interesting time for our family. Like he was quite young when it happened to him. I was even younger, and so like being the youngest of the family, like I didn't really understand much. I mean, partly because I was so young, but also partly because like I just wasn't privy to that information. You know, the youngest childs, they know. Childs. Anyway.
The youngest childs.
You're the youngest children. Moving on. Yeah, so like I was kind of like very detached from the whole not detached, like obviously I very much cared about the whole situation, but I just didn't know really what was going on. Just kind of didn't even ask for details because like I felt like my brother always had to like explain that to doctors, and I had to explain that to parents, and I had to like talk about this constantly with other people. So like I just didn't want to keep like asking questions and things like that. So like I found that I was just going with the flow and following what my parents were thinking, or following how my brother was feeling. And it's really interesting when you obviously like I looked up to both my brothers because, you know, they're my older brothers and there's quite a big age gap between us. So, you know, when you see someone that you like look up to being in such like a vulnerable state, it's really hard to, I guess, yeah, digest, to understand, to like, yeah, like, again, this is not something that people teach you, like how to deal with like sickness in the family, or yeah, how to address these concerns. And so a big factor of that was like watching how my family dealt with this situation, because like it wasn't obviously like a one and done. This was something that lasted for a few years. And like it's always going to constantly, it's like a chronic disease. So like it's always going to affect him. So like the fact that it wasn't just like a momentary fix or anything like that, being able to like watch my family go through it and realize, wait, the doctors don't have the right answers. Everyone's saying a different thing. My parents don't know what to do. They're even conflicted between each other. My brother doesn't know what to do. Like no one knew where to go on this situation and what would be the best thing. And like, obviously like we were at church at this point. So like people were starting to know and like all this stuff. And it was crazy what like Christians even had to like Christian input about like all this health and healing and like,
I say like it was whack, or are you saying like it was helpful?
No, like as in like how people would be like, oh, you need to be praying for healing, you need to be praying for healing, and then other people would be like, I mean, you can pray for healing all you want, but like at the end of the day, like God's not here for just to be like for you to be healed. Like that's not like the end goal. Like this might be a trial, this might be, you know, something that he needs to go through for his testimony, all of this stuff. And like, obviously like hearing that, like somebody saying like, no, he needs to be sick for his testimony is like, is a very interesting thing to say. Actually, that's not even the craziest thing. Somebody
I'll argue.
has one. You argue?
I'll argue.
Somebody has definitely said at our dinner table with like my brother present, it was just a small dinner table, and said, you know, people are sick because they haven't repented of their sins properly. And like sickness comes to those who need to repent. Like once you repent truly properly, like you'll be healed. And baffled, the whole table baffled. But as with all my experience in theological debates, I was now prepared. And yeah, it was interesting conversations to have. Like obviously, like it brought about a lot of emotions. It brought about a lot of different ideas and all of these things. And you know, in the midst of that, it's like really confusing to see all your loved ones who you look up to all of a sudden not know what to do or how to act, or like you just don't know where to go from here. It's like, so how do we figure this out? What? Yeah, what's the next step? And so then that quickly like made me realize like, wait, God. And I was just like, wait, is this the moment where you're supposed to be like leaning on him and trusting him and like all of that stuff? So then I feel like that was really pivotal for like me realizing, wait, like you really can't control anything. And at the end of the day, like
did you find that out during the most like difficult parts, or was it sort of at the dying ends, or like was it?
Yeah, it was definitely like the most difficult parts where like tensions were high and, you know, we really couldn't figure out. And it was mainly when we had to make a decision. Like there was like a big decision that we had to make, and my parents were on opposite ends about what we should do. My brother genuinely had no clue what to do, I feel like, and we just weren't sure. And it was just so hard to make the decision because it was going to be like life-changing either way. And so that was a really tough moment, because in that moment I think I just surrendered everything to God and was just like, I have no clue. Nobody has any clue. And all I want is your will. Like all I want is for us to be doing the right thing. Like give us the guidance, give us peace, like to trust in what's about to happen. Like I just felt like it was so interesting to like be taught through sermons about all this, like, you know, trust in God and trust God's will, and then all of a sudden you're in this situation and you're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be trusting. Like that's what that feels like. Like it's funny to talk about it, but like all of a sudden when you have to do it, it's so much scarier. And you're like, oh, that's what that means. So like,
you know, what's funny about that? I think a lot of people complain about like, why is God doing this to me? And like, why is he putting me through this trial? All this stuff. This might sound so insensitive, but it's funny because I think it's like, it's a lot of the times like it's our fault because we don't get it. So God has to put us in it, like he has to allow a situation to happen to us where we finally understand like we can't do this on our own. Like as good as life is going, like you're not fulfilled in, like you can't be fulfilled in your job, your money, your family, none of it. So then sometimes he has to take things away from us, or sometimes even like our health or whatever. And when people say, it's because he hasn't repented, I can't even imagine saying that to someone. That's just, I know a lot of people would say that. And I think, I don't even know, I don't really want to go down this route, but I think people have the, like, sickness comes from sin, sort of, they have that image skewed a little bit, because sickness does come from sin. But that phrase, sickness comes from sin, doesn't mean like, oh, I just sinned, I'm not repentant, I'm gonna be sick. It means because of the fall, sin entered the world, and therefore sickness entered the world.
Exists,
But people don't know that's it.
Yeah, it's confusing. And like, not to say that it wasn't even backed up, like it was backed up by the Bible. Like Mans was using passages, like he had verses ready to go.
So funny.
And so it was just so interesting. I mean, now I couldn't remember it because that was years ago. But I just found it like really interesting. And that was obviously like a big moment. And when you realize like the people that you look up to, the people that you trust, like all of a sudden they're on different ends, like they don't know what to do. You kind of realize, wow, like kind of have not like we know nothing. Like we know nothing, and you have to like lean on God, because sometimes like you really just don't know the way out, and you have to, I guess, wait on him and see what happens in the end. So, and you know, obviously like while saying that, like even when my brother was sick, like he would be using that for good. He used to like talk to the nurses as well, and like talk to them about God, or he would just constantly be in cheery personality, and they would ask him like, oh, why? And he would, you know, constantly be like, oh, got a good view and God is good. Like he would like, yeah, like a preacher, like our pastor would call him all the time and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like he's, you know, he spent like Christmases and New Year's and like lots of events. He's missed out on lots because he was like in hospital. And like the preacher would always ask like, oh, like how are you doing? He's like, oh, praise God, I got a great view. Like it's good. We're good. We're doing good. And so like that would obviously be such an encouragement to not only like the nurses and the people around him, because he would also be talking to the patients and like have chats with whoever was next to him, and like discuss God with them. And like, you know, that's such like an amazing opportunity, which like you would rarely get unless you were in that situation. But yeah, like, it, you know, it is what it is. And obviously he was even an encouragement to me, like watching that. He was like such a great example for me, to see him in that state, but still being like so cheerful, so happy, and like pushing through. So yeah, it's very.
Yeah. I think it's this is like Darian said something in his podcast that sort of like it sort of made me think, because a lot of times we see Christian, including myself, probably especially myself, like. I mean, if you listen to my brother's podcast, he says, you love suffering, Jonah. Why are you chasing suffering? I think I've seen the most growth from suffering. And that's why I chase it. I don't chase it. I put it in quotations. I don't chase it, but I do, like, if it...
You lightly jog.
That's right. I do welcome it. As in, like, obviously, like, I don't hope it happens, but sometimes it's got to happen for me to grow. And I'm at the point where I just want to grow to the max, and whatever that takes, like, send it my way. God, this could be so hard.
Amazing.
Yeah, and something that Darian said was like he met a friend that was going through something very difficult, and he said it's the first time that he saw his friend. He saw a believer rejoicing in the time of trials. In the time of suffering.
Yes, okay.
And that, like, I started thinking about that. I was like, do I rejoice in the time of suffering? Like, am I, like, so? I reckon, like, we often say, oh, God is good. Like, we believe that for sure. But, like, are we backing it up? It's okay to mourn. It's okay to do all that stuff. But, like, really, truly, how do we actually react in those situations?
Yeah.
Like, I remember just like, I won't say his name again. I don't know if he wants to. I said again. I don't know if he wants his name to be on the podcast, but someone was sick recently, and then like some of us were just like, oh, hope you're okay. We're praying for you. And then he's like, honestly, like he said over text, so it's hard to really know. But he said, like, honestly, like it sucks with the timing because it's over the holiday, but. God is here with me. Is it like it's all good? And I was like, oh, like it was right after Darian's podcast as well. So I'm like, it's cool to actually see someone, like doing well in their suffering, and that's what sounds like your brother was doing. Yeah.
No, I mean it was definitely hard, but
yeah, of course I'm not.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just it's hard, and you definitely. I feel like even when they say it, they're still doubting, but they're hoping that God will give them. The strength to believe it, if that makes sense. Like, and I feel like that's okay too.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I want to reach a point where even in the trials, like James chapter 1, I mentioned James a lot in the other recording. But James chapter 1 verse 2 to 4 used to be my favorite verse or verses.
Sure.
And it's about, I'll just recite it so you know. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And yeah, it goes on, but so I really want to finish it because it's just it doesn't feel complete. I will finish it.
Okay.
Produce steadfastness. So let's I can't remember it now. Wow. And let steadfastness have its full effect, so that you may be complete and lacking in nothing. I probably butchered it, but that's good enough. I don't know why that irks me so much. But yeah, counting it joy in trials is actually what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I know I do always have the joy of Christ in me, even when I'm going through stuff. But I also want to even in my mourning, because mourning is it's actually something from God. God says, blessed are those who mourn. So even when I do mourn, I want to be sort of visibly joyful at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Hopefully one day.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Problem is, I don't think I'm visibly joyful ever. So that's the first.
Got to work on our baseline.
Yeah, not because I'm not joyful. It's just I don't really show excitement for anything.
But yeah, no, yeah, that was definitely pivotal. But yeah, it's
so
it's hard.
You have going to the Coptic Orthodox school where they it was a mix of things: test theology, Coptic Orthodox, where you had to do some research for yourself. So that's theology side of it.
Yeah.
Your
my debating skills.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you can say.
The next one was the first one I guess was you had to drive and stuff like that.
Yep.
You had to contemplate is it worth going to church? Is it worth serving God? Because if you did go to church and you weren't serving God, all that kind of stuff. So that's your action sort of. So you have theology, you have your action, what are you actually going to do about it, about your faith? Yeah. And then you have your faith, do you have faith that God is protecting you? So it's these three things, sort of different pivotal parts in your life, but they all sort of had different things to make you who you are today, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's been a wild ride, but it's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think those three. And then just more recently would be when I had to change churches. Because never in my life did I imagine that I was going to be moving churches. Pretty much gone to the same church my entire upbringing. We've definitely gone to other churches, but I had one consistent church for most of what I'm conscious of. So yeah, when I had to change churches, that was a big step as well, trying to figure out where to go, what to do, what to look for, how are you supposed to be discerning in a church? No church is going to teach you how to find a church. Oh, well, mine didn't. I don't know. Maybe yours does. Let me know. But
that'd be it's negatives. You don't really want to teach a negative sort of thing. It's
no, because preachers even discuss how to be discerning about preachers. I feel I've definitely heard a few. That's
of course, but they also yeah, I think that's different. Because you're gonna hear different preachers even if you're at the same church, and the preacher is telling you out of a place where he believes he is right.
Yeah.
So he's be careful for other preachers.
Yeah.
But
you would just find, wouldn't you just find a preacher that would talk about his church and be be careful of other churches? Or just be this is what to look for? Maybe not be careful. That sounds a bit harsh.
When I say negatives, I mean it's it's not implying, but it's, let's say, implying that you're going to leave church, that the church isn't You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
But with
yeah,
preachers,
yeah,
you're always going to hear different preachers. So when you, I said this last time, but it's like you don't really get told how to deal with a breakup until you're in the breakup.
Yes.
Because like it's like a negative thing. You don't really expect to break up. Well, you shouldn't really expect to break up if you're dating for the right reasons. That is.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't really prepare. Well, you can. But it's a bit odd to prepare for that.
Yeah. I understand it. Like, I'm not saying it's like completely straight, but like, yeah. So like, the point was I wasn't prepared.
Sorry, I just got it. I just made it like so complicated.
No, yeah. So the point was that I was not, in fact, prepared, and I didn't know how to search for a church because I had never gone. Like, while I had gone to other churches, I didn't know why we had gone to different churches or why we had stopped going to other churches. Because then, while we used to go actually to 2 churches for a good chunk of my life, like we would go to a morning church and a night church, and then all of a sudden we stopped going to the night church and we just continued. And so I actually don't even know why we stopped going. So like all of these questions I started thinking, I was like, why do we move to all these churches? Like, how did we decide? Like, it was just very confusing. And I was just like, I was too young to remember any of these things. And like, obviously I ended up asking my parents. It ends up being like church drama, and it's like it's not a good enough reason. Like I need like a theological backing, like how to pick a church, how to stay at a church, when to stay at a church, like what. So all that stuff, like I was just trying to figure out, but I didn't even feel equipped. Like I just didn't feel strong enough in my faith to be equipped to pick a church. I was just like, I don't like, and who do you ask? Like, I don't know. It was just very...
No, it's
too complicated. Like, the whole situation just in itself was way too complicated, so I couldn't even ask. But, yeah, so that was obviously quite intriguing, and, like, it was a very overwhelming and I would definitely say, like, fatiguing time, because searching for another church, like, as you would know, like, you were looking for a church as well, but, like... For me, at least, it was so tiring because, like, I was just constantly critiquing or constantly discerning, I should say, discerning the, like, what was necessary for me to be able to, like, commit to a church. Like, what was, I guess, B-list items that I was, like, okay with, and what was, like, definite core theology that I needed, I must have, and not even just theology, just like makeshift of the church that I needed, so that I could commit to a church. It's
interesting because like I just started thinking now, it's like, because if you don't know, it was in the very first podcast about me. I think I mentioned it. Like I literally just went, like I was very excited. Like after all the church stuff happened, I decided to leave, and I was very excited to find a new church. Not because I dislike my old church. I love my old church. But I decided to leave, thought it was a time for whatever new period of life.
And it would have been hard as well because like you were serving.
Oh yeah, that was the hardest part. Saying bye to like my youth and all that stuff was very, very difficult. It was, I'm not saying it's easy. It was easy to leave, but for me, it was by God's grace, it was easy to find the church.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just started thinking, why was it easy for me to like have that discernment of like, what is, I don't know, like God definitely helped. Like I don't have the answers. God definitely helped because I literally just looked at 2 churches. The second church I looked at was the one I go to now, and I haven't looked back. But I think I'm very like skeptical. So even at like every church I go to, I try and bring it back to like, what does the Bible say a church should look like? In a way, like even like the leadership team, like what's the format?
Yeah.
Like we often just have one pastor and whatever else.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like that was a big question I was asking when it comes to our church.
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely asking like the service, like how people felt about service, how many people were serving. That was a big thing for me at least.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot, and especially being like in a leadership role, you sort of see, like at my old church, I was in a leadership role, so it was like I do see what goes into a church a little bit. Like I was only a youth leader, so I get like the kids stuff, but I think maybe that's why it helped. But also God was just like, here you go. Maybe he needed you to just start looking, discerning and stuff.
Yeah. Maybe I deserved it.
Deserved it, that's right.
Yeah, no. And like, I mean, it ended up being quite a fruitful thing because like, I mean, it was already big enough to have to think of your own salvation, let alone the systematic structure of a church and like what is best. And like, yeah, it was just not a fun time, but it was definitely required and it was interesting. I went to one other church and saw like the way that they run things, which, you know, I enjoyed some things and then like didn't enjoy some things, as you do. But yeah, it was interesting to me how quickly I was I don't know if turned off is the right word because it feels so strong. But how quickly I was...
It's fine. Just continue the sentence without saying the next word. Okay. We understand.
But like, yeah, it was just... I knew like that was not the church for me. Like I just didn't agree with some things and it wasn't going to work out. So it was just interesting to me, like the difference in like one church I was like at for so long. And like even at the church we're at now, I didn't say that I was like a part of the church for so long. And I don't know if that was because like I just felt awkward about saying like I'm like if I was waiting for somebody else to say that I was part of the church before I would start saying that I was part of the church. I don't know what I was waiting for, but like it took me so long before I was like ready to commit and say like, you know, this church is my home.
I think that's like it's somewhat wise. Like even for me, like realistically I knew, but like the indication that I was, it's going to sound so dumb, indication that I was finally part of the church was when I was like, add me to the messenger chats. That was like the indication, like I'm here to stay sort of thing. And that happened like a few months after I actually started coming and stuff. So I think it's wisdom to actually take the time, because the more stuff that gets revealed, the more you're like, okay, well, this is not this is not good. Because on like even with people, like people can look very good, and then you start talking to them and you're just like, oh, okay, there's a lot of flaws in them. Obviously don't judge them like that, but I'm like, you can start seeing the flaws. You can start seeing, is that person going to be a good friend, or is that girl going to be a good partner for me in the future, like that kind of stuff. So I think it's the same with churches. Literally, I don't know why I always correlate like finding a church, finding a partner.
Yeah, I don't know. So that was definitely like a big part. Which because I didn't feel theologically like sound in my, I don't know, just I didn't feel strong enough in my faith to be making that kind of big decision of like moving churches. Yeah. So I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. So many questions came up, so much prayer, so much like trusting and like all that stuff. So I feel like that was also a huge step for me, like growing my faith, because I was like, I'm not going to learn these answers by like just hanging around observing. Like you have to actually pray on it. You have to like read about it. Like you have to know what the word of God says. Like it can't just be like, it wasn't just going to come to me one day in a dream. Like, may have, but like, yeah. So I thought that was definitely quite a pivotal moment as well. Cause a lot of growth.
That's cool. So that was 2 years ago, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I don't know how I know that. All right. Ooh, so that was some pivotal moments in your life. I know the church thing is pretty recent.
Yeah.
But how are you going at this moment in time?
Yep. So I would say, sorry to cut you off. I'm doing good, I think. I feel like I'm the strongest in my faith than I've ever been before. And all of those like moments in my life really like, I want to say like skyrocketed my faith, because I felt like I could have definitely just been on a path of like mediocrity in my my understanding, in my spirituality, like just in my overall like desire to like seek God. So I feel like at the moment, yeah, like it's so good, and like it makes such a difference, the people that are around you, as to like how, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like for me, like the people that are around me change how I respond or how I feel about things, or like how motivated I am. So I think having such a good group of like spiritually sound individuals who just constantly want to talk about Jesus, constantly like want to discuss theological like ideas, and constantly want to do like whatever, like Bible studies, like open up the word, do all of these things, really helps encourage me to like constantly want to do that. So at the moment, yeah, I feel like I'm in a really good place because of the people that are around me, and I have a really good group of I want to say like spiritual leaders. So it makes it a little bit easier to be stronger in your
so
faith.
you attribute your growth in the place that you're in now, obviously, to the things that have happened, the pivotal moments. They wouldn't be pivotal if they didn't move you to who you are now. But also to the people around you. Yeah. That's cool. Like, absolutely. Are you saying people that are older than you, that are throwing wisdom on you, people like above you, I mean, beside you?
I would say beside me. Okay. Beside me is definitely like the biggest factor. And it's mostly like just like I know that I've grown because of the difference in perspective that I had when I first started at the church, and I would just like, all the conversations would somehow lead to God, and I used to like roll my eyes and be like, oh my God, not again. Like, can't we just have one normal conversation without it like leading to God? Like, not everything has to, and I remember thinking that, going, not everything has to deal with God, and going, wait, hold on, come back.
Yes,
what do you mean?
Yes, it does.
Hold on. No. We're not saying that again. And I was just like, wait, why did I think that? What's going on here? Like, and it led me to like, and again, by the grace of God, like it led me to the right direction of thinking, you know, why am I thinking that? Like, why don't I have the same zeal that all of these other Christians have, who are the same age as me, same like, you know, they're in the similar situation, but like I don't have the same zeal. Like, why do they want to talk about God so much? Like, why are they so obsessed with him? Like, what's going on? No, but like, which led me to be like, you know what? Like, this is a good thing. Like, I want to be like that. Like, I don't want to be so like, closed off to the idea that like everything should revolve around God, because it should. And like, I knew that. Like, I knew that in my head, but like in my heart, I didn't like I was just like, like we can discuss regular things, you know, like it was kind of separate, like my Christianity, my Christian personality, and then my regular like personality or something like that. So yeah, I can definitely tell I've seen growth, because like now it's like I enjoy all the discussions that happen, and like I'm so down for like any Bible study, impromptu worship night, or whatever everything turns into, like, you know, because at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's interesting and funny because like I know myself and some other people went through like the same thing, coming to a new church and like seeing everyone like I don't know, like saints, but on fire for God, like like spiritually like high, and then just like really like good. And it was especially a moment where I wasn't doing so well. Like spiritually, so it seemed that like one of two things. It was like they're either like extremely fake, or they just love God. And in my head, it was like they have to be fake. Like it can't be real.
No, I remember thinking the same thing too. Like I used to think, oh my God, this is so fake. But like, gosh,
yeah. So it was like those were the two things, and I think because I was in such a terrible moment, seeing people like really strive for God, it hurt me as a Christian, as a believer, because it's like I want to be like that, but it just doesn't feels like I can't. Like I can't be that spiritual. I can't be that I don't know, joyful all the time.
Yeah.
And that's why when I'm in a good place, when I'm like actually doing well, which hopefully I consistently start doing well now.
Okay.
When I'm doing well, I like to be also open and honest about like how I am doing or how I have been doing, or like things in my life that have taken a toll. I don't always want to be like this happy, emotional, barely that. I don't want that to come across as like, oh, he's got it all sorted out, because I don't, because I'm thinking about the people that are struggling right now, of like, are they looking at me thinking like, okay, this guy has it all together. There's no way I can be like that, because it's not how it is. Because I don't have it all together. I just have a God that is putting it all together.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I don't know if that sort of correlates to what you were saying, but that's like, because I was in similar shoes where I was like it just feels like, like all the worship and all this stuff. I'm just like, I'm so over it. It feels fake, all this stuff. Looking back now, I'm like, it's good.
Things are legit.
It's funny because like now I'm at the time where I cannot be bothered for like a fickle conversation, like meaningless conversation. Like, I don't know if you've realized, obviously I do have meaningless conversations. Like I do enjoying myself, like playing games and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you realize, like I barely speak when there's just like those conversations going.
Yeah.
But then when it's a biblical conversation, you'll see it. You probably won't see it, but inside my eyes light up and I'm like, let's get keen. Like there was that one time that we went to Greenway, like do you remember?
Sure.
Remember that time? It was after worship practice. You were there. You definitely were there.
Okay, sure.
We spoke about a conversation, but I cannot mention.
Ooh. Put in the comments down below what you think it was about.
I think about Fadi had a standpoint, but then I sort of agreed with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that night, prior to that conversation, it was a biblical conversation, by the way. Prior to that conversation, I was just like so over it. Like I was just, I don't know, I was in a weird mood, but I was like, I don't want this conversation. So I don't want this like sort of meaningless. It's not meaningless because it's also people getting close together. But I'm like, I don't want it. Just give me like some biblical or some sort of like Christian conversation. And then when that happened, it's like bang. So like looking back now, I'm like, now it makes sense. Like, maybe some people aren't doing extremely well. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. No, I get you. Yeah, I feel like it's definitely. It's like good to like watch your progress.
Yeah.
It's definitely eye-opening.
So what now? What's the step to keep?
Hopefully haven't.
There might not be the next step. Maybe a few more steps.
Please no. What's the next? Wait, sorry. Ask again.
What's the next step in life to? You say you're doing well. How do you keep that? How do you keep yourself from falling, backsliding, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah. No, such a good question. I would say making sure, like for me at least, making sure that so like everyone says the same thing, pray and read your Bible, but like for me it was praying, but praying in such a way where it's more intentional and like more of a conversation with God. Not to say like you shouldn't always be like irreverent and like understanding like the weight that you're talking to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, but in the same way, like remembering that you don't have to pray to God in such a perfect way. So like even when you're feeling down, like in your lowest moments, like you can pray to God and tell him like, I don't want to like like, I'm so angry with you right now. Like, I don't want to talk to you. This is so hard. Like, and I don't want to do this, but, you know, like, I hate the way I'm feeling, or I hate what's happening to me right now. And I want this feeling to go away. Like, I want to trust in you more. I want to be, I just want to be all consumed by you again. Like, I don't like the distance that has like pulled us apart. Like, but right now this is really hard, and it doesn't feel like I can get over it. Like, just those honest conversations with God, which, like, at the end of the day, he knows, but like, rather than like trying to hide it or like have the perfect conversations, like, you forget that you can like ask your Father and tell your Father these things, like that, you know, you need more help, and like, you want the help of the Holy Spirit to guide you to do certain things, or like to give you more motivation, or like whatever it is that you're like struggling with in your life. And I think for me specifically, that was one of my, like, that's the thing that keeps me the most like grounded or consistent with God. Like, in my bad times, at least, is to like just be honest, pray the things that I'm genuinely feeling, rather than like some, I don't know, beautiful like, yes, and give God, like, give, you know, the poor all that they need. Like, just pray about how you're feeling. Like, I feel like God is the number one psychologist, and he can like, yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't know if that answers the question, but like, yeah, like, definitely in the tough times, at least, is to like pray honestly and just explain how you're feeling and give everything to God. And that even means like you not being right with God, or you're not even wanting to be in the presence of God. Like, whatever it is, it's like, you don't really have to be ashamed by it. Like, I'm sure there are other people who have felt the exact same thing, and like, God sees all, so he's not shocked by you're not spoiling anything for him. He already knows all this information. But
he does. When
you at least say it, or you can when you admit it, I feel like you can actually surrender it to him. Whereas like, if you're not admitting it, and you're not like saying, like, giving it all to him, then you can only go so far in your walk. Yeah.
One of my favorite verses, it's in 1 Peter. I want to say 1.
I thought you liked James, bro.
I did. 1 Peter chapter, it's either 3 verse 7, something like that.
Okay.
But it's literally, it says, cast your anxieties on him, for he cares for you, because he cares for you.
Yep.
Huh?
Yep. Familiar with it.
Yeah. So cast your anxieties because he cares for you.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about this verse, obviously, he tells us to cast our anxieties, no matter what we're feeling, talk to him. That's what he says. But it's interesting, the wording after it, because he cares for you. It's not like, it doesn't say so that he can care for you, or like anything on that. It's because he cares for you, which is interesting, because a lot of the times we're just like, where is God? Why do I not feel God here? Why is all this stuff? 100% of the time, it's our problem. And the problem is, we're not casting our anxieties on him. And the truth of it is, we don't feel his care, we don't feel his love, because we're not doing that. And he tells us to do that because he cares for us, so that we can feel his care for us. Yeah. So his care is always there.
Absolutely.
But we are not always there.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, literally, it's like same as, you know, your parents can only help you out as far as you like let them. And it's the same, I feel like it's the same with God. Like, you can only, like, as far as you let God in is as far as he will work in your life. So yeah, I think it's really important.
I heard, I'm going to butcher it, but I heard, you know, George Jenko?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, he was talking about it, and he's like, God is a gentleman. I felt a bit weird hearing this.
God is a gentleman.
Yeah, he was like, God is a gentleman. He's knocking on your door. He's not going to slam in. He's knocking. He's waiting for you to answer so you can allow him in. Like, that's such a cool analogy. Yeah, I don't know how biblical it is, but I'm like, it's pretty cool. Like, it is like, if you got to allow him to come in.
Yeah.
I said this on our last podcast that you guys didn't see. Like prayer is our way of it is for us, so we can feel cared for and all that kind of stuff. But it also, we work with God through prayer.
Yeah.
Sometimes God won't do something if we don't pray for it. And that sounds mental because God's plan is to do this, and sure. But also, we can go against God's will. And God's will is for us to pray. And when we do God's will and we do pray, that means God's plan will prevail.
Yeah.
But when we don't pray, sometimes, and it's worse for us, God's will won't prevail. Sounds a bit blasphemy. Sounds a bit heretical.
Someone's trying to get cancelled.
I think about it, because why do I sin? Like how am I able to sin if I can't go against God's will?
Interesting. Okay.
I think a lot of, I don't know how we got to this, but I think a lot of people have a mindset of like God's will is, it's going to happen.
Right.
And it will. His plan is far greater than all of it, and he will make it happen. But we can also go against God's will. And sometimes when we do sin, that's definitely not in God's will. God's will is to have perfection, but we failed that.
Yep.
That was the will from the beginning. God's will is for us to pray about this certain thing. And if we don't, like, I'm not speaking for God, but I would say, because we didn't pray about it, won't happen. Or maybe it just, I don't know. I can't, every situation is different, right? Sometimes it does happen, sometimes it doesn't. I attribute this thought process to the story of Moses, and when he's holding his arms up, pretty much when if you don't know the story, when Moses holds his arms up, the Israelites are winning the battle, and they have no right to win this battle, by the way. They're weak. They're versing, like they were snuck up upon. Well, that was snuck up upon.
Pick different words.
I think it's snuck up upon. It doesn't sound English anymore.
Yeah.
But they were sneak attacked.
Yes.
So they had no right to win this. But every time Moses held his hands up, or his arms, they started winning the battle. Yeah. And then when he lowered his arms, they started losing the battle. And it is the symbol. It could also be Moses was praying, that maybe that's what I'm saying, but it is the symbol of prayer. And I personally believe, you might not believe it, you might be like, Jonah speaking heresies. Go to the Bible, test my word. But if Moses didn't raise his hands up, I think that Israel would have lost the battle. And that's a symbol of prayer. And was it God's will for Israel to lose the battle? I don't think so. But if Moses didn't, obviously we're speaking in hypotheticals because it didn't happen. But if Moses didn't raise his hands, I think the outcome would have been different. The thing is, God's plan would still prevail.
Okay.
I like, it's too complex for me to even like start thinking
it's very confusing.
Yeah. But pretty much prayer is important. Prayer is comforting, but it's also active. It is doing something as well. Yeah. If you don't pray for something, it's going to hurt you more than anything else. Yeah. And like, you are, again, it might be like 1% that you're contributing, but God wants that 1% from you. Yeah. He doesn't need us to sustain him or to fulfill his plan, but he wants to need us. So he wants to need us. Yeah. So he created a world, and he created a relationship with us that he needs us. If that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I'm not. So you argue that point. Yeah. Yeah. He doesn't need us, but he created a world. He needs us. Anyway, this is like just a mad theological debate that we won't get into, but maybe one day we will. Okay. All right. that make sense?
Yes.
Or am I confusing?
It does. No. I feel like you definitely have. You may have an argument there.
Fatty.
Yeah, no, I'm not discussing this with him.
Yeah, so those are my like. I can speak about prayer for a millennium. So
yeah.
if
So
there's
that's
anything else.
that's just my advice.
What
is to
about
pray honestly? Sorry, go.
You were talking about bad times. What about good times?
Yeah, so in good times, I would say, because I mean, we were saying before that like it's a lot easier when you're going through good times to forget. And so for me at least, it's easier when I set a time, like a specific time that I'm going to be like dedicating to God. And that could be anything from like listening to listening to my Bible rather than reading my Bible, like on the way to work or something like that, having my quiet time in the morning. It could be like listening to a Christian podcast like Jonah and the Pod, for example.
That's correct.
Yeah, or Mike Winger, Bible thinker. If you haven't gotten onto it, get onto it. Like just making sure to actually block out time in your day, like a meeting, like you would block out anything, like you would have to schedule time to go shopping, you would have to schedule time to go to the gym, like all these things, like to actually block out time to be with God. That's at least what works for me, because yes, I definitely, I'll be the first to admit that when times are good, it's a lot easier to forget to have time with God, or like, just to be thinking, or like to bring him into everything every day. So
I think with each person it's a bit different.
Yeah.
I would like to say that I wouldn't like to say, but I think I'm like you, that in the hard times it's easier to rely on God. But then I'm thinking about it, like when I like in my sickness that I had, but that was terrible. That was terrible. Like I didn't read. I probably read like in those 6 weeks, like once or twice, like very, very bad.
Okay.
But also that, I don't know, it's a weird one. I don't know. So I think people are very different. And whatever moment that you are good with God, like Ashley said, build a routine, build like the habit, because when you are on the opposite, when you sort of reach that point of you're not technically good with God, you have that habit, you have that routine that hopefully doesn't go away. So adding to your point, there's a quote from Charles Spurgeon, and it says, "We are too prone to engrave our trials in marble and write our blessings in sand." Meaning, we often forget our blessings. So I think in the good times that we have, it's like we are just we disregard everything that Christ has done for us, or everything that God has even given to us. Like, I reckon if we counted it, our blessings would outweigh our trials by so much. But often we just write our trials down, like mentally, and we forget about our blessings. But if we remember the blessings, I think life will be so different.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember there was one time where like it was the beginning of Graceway time period, and someone literally told me, I reckon you just write your blessings down that God has done for you. It was probably like March. And just this year, just like write the blessings that you've done this year, that God has done for you this year. But like, I made like a massive list. Like, it outweighed my prayer points by a million.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think we just forget a lot.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely a good idea. I feel like you don't actually realize how far you are until you look back to like where you were before.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And like, what is that? Like, I always say that quote that's like, you frequently forget that the life you're living now is the life you used to pray for, like beforehand.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like we often forget. We just get so like caught up. I feel like it's just like human nature, like the greed. Like we just like want more. Always looking for the next thing. But yeah,
it's true. Yeah, that was good. I reckon let's take the Polaroid now.
Okay.
And then we can into maybe we'll do one more topic or like one more.
Sure.
Yeah, look, that was all cut because well, we did take the photo. I will put it in the infamous cupboard.
Oh my god. Listen.
Let's have a mug.
Don't ask me of all people just to take a photo like willy-nilly. Like it means nothing.
It means everything. So yeah, we can talk.
If we must.
All right, there are a few topics that we can talk about. The thing is, okay, this is probably where the podcast gets like a bit out of whack or wild. I don't know. I'm going to turn this off. So even like probably around a year ago when I first started the podcast, less than a year ago, months ago, like whatever. Mm-mm. I asked Ashley, all right, are you going to come on? And she's like, yeah, man. And I was like, look, maybe down the track when we're done the testimonies or whatever. And I was like, what topic would you want to talk about? Ashley was like, victimization. Mm. There was something else, victimization or something else, but I can't remember what the other thing was.
I don't know.
Yeah. So we are going to sort of unpack Ashley's brain on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you mean by? It seems like it's something that is on your brain because even when I asked you recently, you said the same thing.
Sure.
You said victimization.
Yes. Oh, well, yeah. No, I feel like this is like something I'm very passionate about, definitely. Okay. And I'll argue with anyone who wants to argue with me about this. Like I feel like such a prevalent thing now, especially in the times that we're in of like social media and like cancel culture and all of that stuff. So like, yes, I'm definitely passionate about it. And should we just get into it?
Yeah, I think I will play like advocate. Okay. I will be both sides of the coin.
Okay.
And I will just argue for the sake of arguing.
Oh my God, how fun. Okay. All right. So basically, I'm just of the opinion that we are, as generations go on, we're getting weaker and weaker. And I find that people are getting more easily offended by things, just like less of a backbone in general, or just people are just so easily moved or influenced by what other people are saying. Also just very, very quick to just be upset if they're not like, I guess, like included or considered in certain like conversations. Like, I don't know, it's like you hear somebody like making a video online and it's like if they give their opinion but they didn't also include the opinion of others, like there's a riot in the comments. And specific with it for Christians, I just think I just don't think it's Christian behavior. Like I think there is not would I be bold enough to say there's never a time or a place to be offended? Like I think being offended speaks so boldly of like the person and less about like whoever the antagonizer. Because in my opinion, there are two things that create offense. Number one, you're either completely insecure about whatever the situation is. Or number two, you have too much pride to be able to like allow other people to think differently or have a different perception or think badly about you, whether you care. Like, for example, like I might not, this is going to sound so mean, I might not care about like Jonah specifically and his opinion, but just the idea that he doesn't agree with my opinion or doesn't agree with my ideals is what's riling me up. And so I just don't think there's ever a context in which like being offended is Christian behavior.
Okay.
Should unpack more.
No, that is. I will ask questions. I think I might just ask the same questions as I did before. No, but now we have a That's cool. An answer.
Yeah. Hopefully.
So you're saying there's no sort of, it's a bold statement. There's no way, like, there's no right to be offended. Is there a right way to be offended?
No, because I was like, again, not explaining this in the first recording, but I think offense refers to the internal feeling that is happening. And so I'm not so much worried about like the external response to being offended. I'm more like, I'm very concerned with like our internal being of like being offended to me is extremely prideful. Like I think in most cases it's quite prideful. And so like, obviously, as we know, like pride is a sin. It's like, I think one of the biggest sins. And so I just think you can respond appropriately, even if what people say is upsetting or like you just don't agree with it. You can still respond appropriately and like you can stand up for yourself and you can argue back to a certain extent, respectfully. But I don't think that internal feeling of being offended, I don't think it's fruitful in any way. And I don't think that's like, yeah.
Interesting. All right. So I think me and you pretty similar. We don't really get offended by much.
Mm-hmm.
If someone said something, maybe it would just be like, it's not what they said. It's just like, well, for me, I'll speak for myself, not for you. It's sort of just like, what's their reasoning behind saying that? I don't care about what they said, but like, you don't have to say that. You don't like, you know what I mean? Like if someone, this is more like personal to me. It's not just in general. Like if someone says like, Ronaldo's better than Messi, I'd just be like, look, you're dumb, but I'm not going to get offended.
Yeah.
Because I know that I'm right. Of course.
But see, that's what I mean. You're secure in the fact that you're right. Like that's what guys, it's two things. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. But I think there's the personal aspect where it's like, I wouldn't get offended at what they're saying, but it would be like, I'll sort of be taking offense at the fact that they're saying it. As in, like, there have been moments in life recently that I've just been like, there's no need for you to say that.
Yeah.
Why are you saying that?
Yeah.
It just shows, like, I don't know, from the culprit.
Mm-hmm.
That is like you're just trying to sort of irk someone, or you're trying to say something that is unnecessary.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't get offended by what people are saying. Sometimes I just think, like, why? Why did you? Yeah.
Okay.
But there has been times where I've been offended.
Okay.
And times like when people talk trash about Christ, like that's, for me, that's probably the only time I actually truly get it.
Right.
I don't know if you call it offended, but I get defensive.
Yeah.
That's when I'm willing to like flip tables and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, is that offended? But I think to like the naked eye, that's probably offended.
Right.
Like
based off your response. Is that what you mean? Or
like even the way I'm feeling towards their comment.
Yeah. Because
I know the absolute truth and I'm secure in the absolute truth.
Yeah.
But the fact that you sort of just disrespected my God like that, that I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's where I'm like, that's where I draw the line.
Right.
And I think most people, like for instance, that time that person went, what was it? Today's show? Was it this morning? What's it called?
This morning?
This morning. What's it called? The morning show?
Sunrise? I don't know.
Sunrise, that's the one.
Was it on Sunrise?
I think so.
I don't know.
It's not Sunrise? No.
I don't remember.
What was it?
The Today Show. No,
Yeah,
you're
the
right.
Today Show.
You're right. Yeah.
And they made that very like...
Yeah, vulgar comment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I personally just like I wanted to flip tables.
Yeah.
There were other people, maybe not for the right reasons, but the offended, being offended caused an uprising for the better.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah.
So in that case, wouldn't you think that is positive?
No, I think the response, the outwardly response is what caused an uprise for the better. I think the offense, again, is like something that's more internal. And usually offense will lead to, like, I mean, depending on how much self-control you have, but will lead to a negative, like, external response. It's very hard, I think, to remain, like, have self-control once you've become offended. Just, again, because there is only, like, pride and insecurity which are now driving your decisions or your reactions. And so it's a lot harder to have, like, a respectable conversation or, like, either of these things once you become offended. I don't think it was the offense that drove change or drove, like, the apology or drove the, like, whatever else happened. Like, I can't even remember. I think it was more just the external response of being like, hey, like, that was disrespectful. Because I think if people approach it with, like, that's offensive, like, nothing actually would have happened. Or, like, do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. But, like, yeah, I feel like there's a difference. And we need to isolate the fact of, like, external response to an internal, like, offense, because that's just something that you deal with within yourself. Like, that's just only hurting you. And so, yeah, I just don't find it fruitful.
Yeah. Do you think Jesus got offended when people are using his temple as a or the marketplace?
Yeah. No. I don't. I think offense was very different. I think he was upset. I think he was righteously angry. I don't think he was offended, because I don't think that Jesus can have pride. And I also don't think, like, and if we're going by my definition of offensive, like, I think he was completely secure in the fact of, like, of what he knew. So he wasn't offended by, like, what was happened. He was upset and righteously angry, and as he should be, with what was going on. So I think, yeah, no, it was definitely, like, an appropriate response, and I don't think you could consider that offense.
Yeah, he stood for what is right, pretty much.
Yeah, which is what we should do too.
I feel like this isn't victimization. It's just weakness. Like, victimization is thinking like you're the victim of
like,
situations.
it's usually making, well, I would say victimization is like making certain situations about you, or like feeling like that, at the end of the day it's about you, which, again, pride. Which, like, I just find people get offended because they think that they're the victim in the situation. Right. So I guess that's how that, like, links up.
But, like you, like, I can be offended because, like, if you say something directly to me, I am the victim of your insult or whatever it is. Like, so I am a victim. It's not victimization.
Yeah, a victim of the insult. Yeah, you can be a victim.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just honestly.
No. There are definitely victims in situations.
Situations.
There are definitely victims, but I think, like, victimization is, like, always bringing the argument or the problem back to you. Like, saying, oh my God, but what about me? But what about me? But what about me? And that's, like, entirely selfish and entirely prideful and entirely, like, because it's, like, reversing, like, it's the guilt trip, but, like, in the most horrible way, like, in reverse. And I don't know where we're going with this, but like, I think victimization is still linked to, like, getting offended, because people like use that as a means. Like, I've been offended, therefore I am the victim. But it's like, you shouldn't have been offended in the first. That's why I'm telling you, you're not the victim. Yeah.
So what's your, like, how do people stop being offended?
Yeah, good question. I think it's really, hold on. I think it's really important to, like, remember, I think take note of the things that offend you. So, like, when people say things and you find that they're super, like, insulting, This is actually one of the reasons, like one of my questions that I ask people was like, what's the most insulting thing somebody can say to you? Because of this reason. I think when somebody like tells you something and you find yourself becoming like overly upset by it or overly offended, anything like that, just ask yourself why. Like analyze it, think about it within yourself. Like you need to introspectively discover why you feel this way about what they've said. Because at the end of the day, like Jonah could tell me, oh, you have straight hair, you have straight hair, you have straight hair. And it doesn't matter how many times he says it. Like I'm confident in the fact that I don't have straight hair. But like he's wrong. And so like what he's saying to me is never going to offend me because I'm secure in the fact that I have curly hair. So there's that. And then, but like if he was to say something to me that maybe did like tug on one of my insecurities, then I'm going to ask like, why did this thing hurt? Like, why did it hurt when he mentioned this? Or like, and you just keep asking like why 1,000 times until you get to like the root of the problem. And you'll easily find out like when you're getting offended, it's like, you're the problem. Like,
yeah,
like it's really like, it's not that deep. It's not about you. Like, and most of the time, like when people say things, like it's about them. So it's like, yeah, you either have to like care about what the person is saying. Like I would either just really care about your opinion. Like you could say something that's not true, but if I really care about your opinion, then it's still going to bother me or I might get offended by it.
Mm.
So it's like, you got to remember like, whose opinion do you care about? And like, why do you care about it that deeply? Because at the end of the day, like there is one thing that we know that is truth, and that is the word of God. And everything apart from that is like irrelevant. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, long story short, is to ask within yourself, like, why am I getting offended by this? And try to discover like the root cause. That's
so interesting. Because I remember you asked me the question of,
what do you get most insulted by?
Do you remember my answer?
Hello?
God? My room's just transforming. Do you remember my answer?
No. Do you?
I remember my answer.
Oh. You want to share it?
Sure.
No, you don't have to.
No, I will. It was being called a Pharisee. Or like something along those lines.
I do remember it.
And it's interesting because I'm not insecure about being a Pharisee, but I have been called a Pharisee. Like and it was just out of the blue. Like it was in school days when it was like, I probably was more like a Pharisee back then.
Okay.
And like that, to me, that's like the worst insult because it maybe does have some sort of insecurities behind it. Again, I don't believe I'm a Pharisee, but the fear of the fear of being portrayed as a Pharisee is terrifying.
Yeah.
Even though I know that I'm not a Pharisee. It's like with your hair. Imagine you're like, you're like, your hair is curly, but imagine like you're scared, like your biggest fear is that your hair is straight.
Yeah.
And then someone's like, bro, your hair is looking straight today.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you're just like
100%.
You'd be like, I don't know, like, would that be offended? I don't know.
I mean, I guess it depends on what level of like,
yeah, I don't know,
of like emotion it gives you is how you would decide if you're offended.
I think I would be offended if someone genuinely, like, I know people are going to be like, oh, you're a Pharisee, if they actually reach this point. But like if they genuinely came up to me and be like, Jonah, you're being such a Pharisee or something like that, or like, do you have Pharisee tendencies?
Yeah, Pharisee tendencies. It's giving Pharisee.
You're in your Pharisee era? Oh yeah, that would be like, that's so tough. Like I would not want to be like that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But like that's literally why I asked that question, is because like you can tell so much about a person by based off what they think the most insulting thing is to them, because it doesn't mean nothing. Like this is something that means a lot to them for some reason. There's like, sorry. Okay.
No, I was just, because I remember yours. What you told me.
Yeah. You can say it. Do you remember it?
I do remember it, but I don't know if you want me to say it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was being high maintenance.
Yeah. Like,
well, that's what you told me. So
Yeah. Like along the lines of that, like being told that like I'm too uptight.
See, that's like, is that an insecurity for you? Because you're literally like the opposite of that.
Well, I think it's just something I would find the most offensive because I'm not, and it's something I actively try to be, to not to be.
So it's like me with the Pharisee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
It's like with most people, no one like tries to be the thing that they hate. Like, you know what I mean?
But if you're told
like
the thing that you hate the most, then you just like, you're more likely to be offended. So how would I stop being offended by that? Because it's like I'm actively trying not to be like that. You know what I'm trying to say? So isn't that sort of a good offended? It's not a good offended, but it's like,
like
I feel like we're just going in circles. We should probably wrap up soon anyway. But
I think just like as long as you are confident in like what the word says, like are you doing the right things? Like, are you being biblical in your actions or are you not being biblical? Because it's still a good thing to be self-reflecting always and like coming back to like how you're acting. So like I feel like, just like leaning again back onto the word, making sure that you're not doing anything that like a Pharisee would do. Like I constantly self-reflect and make sure I'm not doing anything that's too uptight or high maintenance or like anything like that. But like, I just think constant self-reflection, I feel like, is the answer to everything. Other than Jesus.
That's true. No, but even in like just in life in general.
Yeah, never assume anything.
I was gonna say that's why I said like you got to take responsibility like as a man. You have to, but that was
not in this one.
Not in this one. It's a bit like I don't think it's fully developed.
Okay.
But we can sign it. You're also very white.
I am. How dare you?
Actually offended.
Oh my gosh. Ashley offended.
Oh wait, we have blue, clear. Is that clear, you reckon?
Oh my god, don't give me any more options. Just give me a pin. I don't wanna know. Trying to hurt me too. I'm gonna go for the clear.
No, racism.
What am I gonna write?
Maybe just like as you speak and write, just talk to them.
Okay. Can we like?
You can push it down.
Okay. But I don't know what I'm gonna say.
I don't know what you're gonna say.
But you need to fill in this space.
Yeah, well, I forgot we're doing podcasts.
For like ad plugs or something.
Ad plugs?
Oh my god.
Ad libs?
Yeti. I don't know.
What? Oh, plugs.
Yeti, sponsor us. Frank Green also sponsor us.
No, we don't want Frank.
Whoever gives us the more merch, we will. I'll move to whatever side. Just give us the merch. I'm currently team Frank Green. I don't know why
Ashley's thinking she's going to get anything from this.
I'm obviously getting 10% of everything from this episode.
Honestly, guys.
What colour is yours the least? I'm so stressed.
Honestly, round of applause for Ashley because like we recorded literally a 2-hour episode before this that didn't get recorded. And now we have another, I think around 2,000. 2,000? 2 hours of talking. So Ashley has sat with me for 4 hours talking. Most of them are duplicated. So a round of applause for Ashley. She's a real one.
Woo! Clap. Why are you clapping?
Honestly, so rude. Yeah. Ashley's pretty cool. But words don't matter to her, so I can literally say anything.
They don't know that. Sorry guys, you missed out on the other podcast.
Pretty much Ashley doesn't like words.
Words are dust.
There's no context. All right, if you're in the, Ashley's taking so long. if you're still watching, write in the comments. What should they write in the comments? Write in the comments.
Give us a controversial question that I can add to my controversial questions list.
Sure. No one's going to do that. It's too much effort. Just write Ashley's a real one.
Write what you think my biggest insecurity. What do you think our biggest insecurity is?
As a team?
Yes.
As a team, all right.
Sure.
Non-audio podcasts.
Why?
Then it's fine. It's doing that thing again. It's okay.
I have to go home.
No, it's fine. It's still recording. I don't know why you're saying that. Guys, you don't understand how much of a headache this podcast has been. Not this one. Not because of Ashley. Actually, you're taking so long. I'm waffling so much. I will show the people.
I don't know.
The amount of waffle that just came out of me. Like you have a full government name. Say something.
Actually, I should have put my full government name. Guys, if anyone's wondering, my full government name, well, technically, is Ashley Ashraf Alfonso Sidrak. But unfortunately, there isn't enough space on the card for that.
It's actually like, on the camera, it looks a lot better than in life.
Thanks. Okay. And then I pick where to pin it.
Yeah. I hate the fact that my dad pinned it like that.
Dragon Ball Z on your side. Digital's like the things.
You don't have VeggieTales merch? A fake fan. Actual fake fan.
Someone wants to buy me a VeggieTales merch. That will be VeggieTales, if you want to sponsor us.
I'm going to get you a Larry the Cucumber costume.
Okay.
And you have to wear it to church.
Don't make promises. Okay. Don't make promises you can't keep.
While you're on worship.
No, it can't be a stumbling block.
True.
Where are we going to go? I feel like...
Go next to who you love the most. You know what the best thing about it is? Literally me everywhere.
Okay.
I'll still be there.
How do you even fit? You're going to have to relocate things short.
Yeah, no, I will. It's just like actual chaos right now. Guys, Ashley's going to bring my curls back because it is a disaster.
Excuse me, you decided you wanted to shave it off.
I know, but I'll fix it. It's so bad. Look at this. What is happening here? Anyway, my biggest insecurity. Don't tell me I have curly hair. All right, well.
Anyway, if you thought Ashley was great, give this one the most views that you've ever seen. Recommend this to your friends, your loved ones, and teach them how to not be offended today for the simple price of their salvation.
Yikes. We actually can't pay for that. Christ can pay for that. Look, it's 1 a.m. We have lost our mind.
Oh my God.
And she has like a 40-minute drive. Anyway, thank you, Ashley.
Can we at least do the outros with the poppies?
That's so much effort. You actually want to bring the poppies? For reference, in the first, we were waffling at this stage. But in the first podcast, we did an intro with puppies on her lap, and now we don't have puppies. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Ashley. Everyone, please, Ashley's a real one in the comments. No one's going to comment. No. But thank you all for watching. Thank you again, Ashley. Any final words? Anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to?
I want to give a shout out to Larry the Cucumber and my boy Bob the Tomato. Yeah.
All right.
That's about it.
Very good. Peace.